with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I don't know of any changes to the agenda tonight. Does anybody else know of any? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Forsberg,
Second.
second by Skelly. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to some future events, please check the district calendar and resource guide or the district website for a complete list of monthly events. Friday, March 11, no school for students, staff professional workday. Monday, March 14 through Friday, March 18th, no school spring break. Monday, March 21, no school for students, staff professional workday. Tuesday, March 29, school board work session at 6 p.m. And Tuesday, April 2nd, school board regular meeting at 7 p.m. with communication to the board and administration at 6:45. Moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Easter,
Second.
second by Bo. To approve the following items of the consent agenda. Minutes of the February 8 school board regular meeting, minutes of the March 1 school board work session, bills paid for January 2022 in amounts totaling $12,922,992, and personnel items. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to discussion reports and information items. Number 1, effective operations, improve our effective management of human, financial, and physical resources. Project update, Redesign Alternative Learning Program, Dr. Hopron. Welcome.
Good evening. Tonight, I just wanted to provide an update to the school board and the community on one of our district operational plan projects, which is to redesign alternative learning programming. So for the past 8 or so years, we've had an agreement with Northeast Metro Intermediate District 916 to provide alternative learning programming for Spring Lake Park High School students through one of their alternative learning centers, Metro Heights Academy. During the 2020-2021 school year, we completed a study to evaluate the impact of students transitioning to Metro Heights, specific to their credit recovery and graduation rate. And we also studied best practices in alternative learning programming. Results of the study indicated that we needed to enhance our partnership with Intermediate District 916 and consider new designs for alternative learning programming that better align with best practices, our vision, and most importantly, our level of student success. We have several milestones within this year's project and wanted to provide an update on each of those key achievement points. So the first is that we have partnered with Metro Heights Academy to redesign the process to transition Spring Lake Park High School students to and from Metro Heights. The design team between Metro Heights and Spring Lake Park High School met in the summer to look at the challenges that were preventing students from making progress toward credit recovery. Counselors from Spring Lake Park High School, Ms. Megan Johnke, one of our associate principals, and the administration from Metro Heights Academy and 916 met to talk about methods that can be put in place both prior to students making the choice to transition to Metro. Once they've made the choice, to work with students and families to have them enroll successfully there, maintain relationships through the process, and then transition students successfully back to Spring Lake Park High School when they are ready. So what we've seen so far this year are better results than in years past specific to students recovering credits, and Spring Lake Park High School students continuing to have relationships with their counselors for personalized learning, so that those relationships and support are present as students transition back to the high school. Mr. Scott Thomas from 916, the Director of Learning at 916, and I meet each month on that, and then together, and then on the opposite months, we meet with the administration of both the schools to check in on that. Second key achievement point is we wanted to create a report to alert staff to students in grades 7 through 12 who may be at risk for graduation to support earlier intervention. And we have proactive measures in place, and we created a visual report that really looks at those key predictive factors that were discovered through our study last year. And they're highlighted just based on level of alert as we look at student data. The two primary factors there are course fails and chronic absenteeism. It's also disaggregated by student group and allows staff to look across all of those predictive factors and make sure that in our other systems and structures that are in place, we aren't missing any students who could benefit from proactive support. Third achievement point, we designed and implemented an alternative learning team as an option for students in grades 11, 12 to approach learning differently this year. About 90 students were originally identified as those who might benefit from an alternative learning team approach at the high school. A key factor, we're looking at students who were significantly behind on credits. From there, counselors and high school admin had conversations with students and families to talk about this different approach that the team would be taking to learning and teaching to create the current cohort of students at grades 11, 12 who are on our alternative learning team. There are 4 core content teachers on the team who work with students to recoup past learning and credits, while also working to reignite student belief in their capacity as learners and leaders, as well as cultivating hope and excitement around their post-secondary plans. Students and teachers use a flexible schedule, interdisciplinary learning experiences, and relevant learning experiences with connections to service learning and career-based learning. And then students show their learning in multiple ways that are real and relevant to them. Finally, we participated in an initial design session with Northeast Metro 916, their alternative learning center staff and students, and we were able to provide 916 some insight as they work to redesign student learning experiences. We gave you an update at the work session last week around this as well. But back in September, we started the conversation with 916 leaders to ask them to consider, is this something that they would be willing to go through as a design process so they can look at the learning experiences that are provided for students at Metro Heights. Our initial design session was Wednesday, February 23rd. There were 4 Spring Lake Park admin there, and more importantly, Spring Lake Park students who were involved at Metro Heights Academy who provided their voice as we went through that design process. Next steps, we'll continue monitoring the implementation of those transition practices that we put in place over the summer and that we've been following into the school year and will continue to do as we transition to summer programming. Again, as I mentioned, Scott and I meet every month, and then we meet with admin every other month to monitor that. Next step is also to evaluate the impact of the alternative learning team approach at Spring Lake Park High School to inform future programming. And our coordinator of learning analytics is supporting the high school in their data collection and analysis, and that includes both quantitative measures, things like impact on credit recovery, attendance, just to name a couple, as well as qualitative measures. And so making sure we get both the student and family experience on the alternative learning team. Intermediate District 916 is taking next steps to move the insight that they gained in that initial design session and transition that into design qualities for their alternative learning center teachers as they look at designing learning experiences for students as they go into next fall. We'll continue to have some voice and participation in that process. And then finally, we will continue to explore other options for alternative learning programming within, beyond 916 and in-house as well. Those are all things that are happening with that right now. So with that, I will open it up to any comments or questions.
Anybody? Comments, questions? I will say for those in the audience or anybody who might be watching, we did have a pretty extensive presentation about this at our work session, so we got a lot of our questions answered there. But any other comments or questions? Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the work session, but
Yeah. Oh, right,
I do.
sorry.
I do
You
have
already
one.
answered that question.
Well, you probably did. One quick question. What are some of the measures of success? You don't have to share all of them, but just maybe one example of a measure of success that we're making progress with
Oh, sure.
916.
Yeah, so
Or Metro Heights and 916.
yeah, with Metro Heights. So we do look at the number of credits that students have been able to recover is one metric that we use. We look at attendance as a quantitative measure. We look at engagement more qualitatively on how students are engaging with the work that is happening at Metro Heights and the high school, depending upon where they're at So those are a few that we look at for that. We look at student support, social, emotional, behavioral support, and what they may need and how that's being received, how they're receiving that both at Metro Heights and at the high school.
And then do they transition back to Spring Park?
It really
Or-
depends upon the individual student situation. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. There are times when students make a lot of progress in their credits at Metro Heights and continue on there because that's working for them at this moment in time. There's times when students choose to transition back, but all of that happens, especially with some of the new transition processes that we've put in place. There are connections that happen with students, families, our counselors for personalized learning, and high school admin, as well as Metro Heights administration. It's all a collaborative conversation.
Great, thanks.
Anybody else?
A comment. Students who go there or to any of the other 916 alternative learning can graduate either from their home district or from 916. They have a choice.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody on this side?
I'll just have a comment. We went over this at the work session just for the benefit of anybody who might be watching in the audience. So as I understand it, we're building and designing an alternative learning team at the high school, in addition to kind of designing some of the Metro Heights programming as well. And the ultimate objective here is to get to a place where, depending on the needs of a particular student, they might be, they have the alternative learning, whether it's better for them to stay at the high school or whether it's better for them to go to Metro Heights, that either one of those are viable alternatives for them. That's basically the end objective, right?
Correct. I want to give them multiple options to fit what their unique needs may be.
Yeah, my comment would just be, I appreciate you guys taking the time to, make note that maybe not every student was succeeding at the level that we hope they will, and so taking steps toward just helping every student get their needs addressed in the way that works best for them. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to superintendent's report.
If I have it going the right way. So just a few things to update you on that have happened in recent weeks. But our high school kickoff, and I know that Sam was involved with that, with his kids. But 8th graders and their families had a chance to come over and kind of kick off their experience with high school recently, and that went really, really well. It was attended well. We heard positive feedback from people, so that was a nice job by the high school team with that. There we go, a little delay. This was kind of a fun thing that we saw up at North Point. Some of our classrooms up there completed a surface project for some local animal shelters. Put together toy bags, fleece tie blankets, etc. And it's just nice to give them that opportunity. We always talk about how do we engage with the beyond the walls of our schools, and this was just one of those ways. There's all kinds of examples across the district, but this was one nice way to capture some pictures and so on, the work they did with that. Some community partnerships, as a board, I've updated you on this, but I think it's fun to be able to let people know that we had about 30 local business, government, and nonprofit leaders, and we call it our industry roundtable, and got their input really about some of the work that we're doing with their pathways, some of the things that needs that they see for in the future for their workers and what they do, just kind of to help inform the work that we do and the learning that we provide for our students. So that has been really valuable, and I can't give enough thanks to those industry leaders who volunteered their time to come in. So, and then this is just a picture, and pause it there for a moment so you can see these are some of the folks that were in, and where they were very engaged to a number of different prompts they had to share their thoughts and ideas. Our 7th and 8th graders performed Guys and Dolls here recently, Guys and Dolls Junior recently, so you can kind of see them in action. So it's fun to see how our theater program in recent years has really grown. So fun to see that. This is really a unique piece that Tony Mayer, his team, Matthew Boucher at the high school have put together cheer bags. So we had a number of students, social workers, and staff packed over 100 cheer bags with a local organization called Thumbs Up. And they also work, I think, the district they work with the most is Elk River, and then down to us now, and they do a number of different things. But these bags are just ways for kids, when one of our students may be having a down day at either Westwood or high school, they can get this cheer bag in the counseling office. Just to, it's got a lot of great resources within it for the kids. So that's kind of a nice thing and a nice partnership, and we really appreciate Thumbs Up and the advocacy they do on the behalf of young people. Our Science Olympiad, which I remember when we kicked this off a number of years ago, and it's fun to see how that's continued to grow. Somebody here had a son who was very involved with kicking that off, but they competed recently against 37 other teams, medaled in 3 events, but it continues to grow, and it's fun to see. Our swim team, which you know has been a very strong program in recent years, second as sections. So the number of individual section champions, state qualifiers. So smashed, as you can see there, smashed section and school records. So another successful year. So it's a lot of fun to see.
Really well at state as well.
So it's that. And then our Pantherettes, it's just pretty huge milestone. 20 years in a row. They just had the 20th straight year where the dance team was bound for state. So, and then this was just kind of was really cool. I shared this with you, just an email where a parent had shared with us how this had brightened her day, but more importantly, her son's day, as well as the other 2 students who are involved with our adaptive floor hockey team, and how they're often at our football games, basketball games, et cetera, cheering on the volleyball, cheering on our student athletes. And it was great to see. You can see in the lower left there all of the students from our high school that went to cheer them on at a recent tournament. So it's just, that's what it's all about when it comes down to it, is really that sense of inclusion for those kids. So, and then our Panthers for a Purpose event that happened recently, and it was another great success. Huge kudos to the Panther Foundation. All the work they've done, of course, Colleen Peterson for the work she does with them to make that happen, but raised over $120,000 during that now week-long event. It's not just one evening, but there's a ton of work that goes into it. And it was kind of a different format this year from the gala that we've had. And I'll just say that Colleen was a little worried about how it would go, and it was a great success. So again, thanks to everybody, because those are dollars that come right back into the schools and benefit our students. So
Our student representative spoke at it, did a great job.
yes. Yes. And that's it.
All right. Anybody have any questions or anything for our superintendent? All right. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Moving on to action items. We will start with the approval of the 2021-2022 budget revisions. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Forsberg,
Second?
second by Bo. To approve the revised 2021-2022 budget as shown below. You can see it on the agenda. We went over this in detail at our work session. Basic idea behind this is we start with one budget with what we know in June, and then we find out what money we get from the legislature, and things change, and we need to rework those numbers as the year goes by. So this is a reflection of that. Any other discussion on that? We are voting on this tonight, so.
Doesn't exactly pertain to this, but do we have an escalator clause in our busing contract? Because the price of gas is going sky high.
Yeah, there's a slight one. It's not significant, but I can't remember off the top of my head, but I could look into that and get back to you with that. So
Yeah,
I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but
it's kind of going crazy.
That probably will take another revision
Yeah.
at some point.
Somewhere along the way. All right. Any other discussion or questions on that? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to approval of construction bids. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Sorry, thing ran away from me. Motion by Skelly,
Second.
second by Easter. To award the base bid as well as alternative number 1 and alternate 2, for the 2022 re-roofing and wall renovations project at Spring Lake Park High School. Discussion, you want to
Yeah, I
just say
can
a
just
couple
give a
words?
little
Yeah.
bit of information. So this is a project that would be in the pool section of the high school. So we'd be re-roofing a section of the pool and tuck pointing at the top of the exterior wall. So that's what the project is. It's part of when we look in the spring and we see our long-term facilities maintenance budget over 10 years. This is one of those projects that's on there, just comes up. For information, school districts must follow a process for awarding construction projects over $175,000. So we have to advertise the project. There's sealed bids that then revealed in an open public setting. So we have to, there's very clear guidelines that we need to follow. Bids were opened on March 1st with 2 bids that were received, both by reputable companies. We went with the low bid, plus both alternates to the low bidder, as were listed in the attachment. So, and the alternates were just things that improved aesthetics, and if they came in at a reasonable rate, we'd want to go with those, and they did. So it's pretty straightforward. It's rare that we go with somebody other than the low bidder. There's got to be some outstanding circumstances to do that. In this case,
Yeah.
working with Carl Sanderson, they recommend going with the low bidder next to us, Shane, our head of buildings as well.
Okay,
So,
excellent.
yeah.
Anybody have questions or comments?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Were we expecting more than 2 bids?
It always depends on the various projects, so we never know for sure, but in this case, it was, just 2, so.
Was it within what we had thought it would be for our budgeting purposes?
Yeah, they came in less than what we originally had budgeted for.
Thanks.
Good questions. Anybody else? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to acknowledgement of gifts, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Easter,
Second?
second by Bo. To adopt the following resolution, whereas School Board Policy 706 establishes guidelines for the acceptance of gifts to the district, and whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 states that a school board may accept a gift of real or personal property by the adoption of a resolution approved by 2/3 of its members, therefore be it resolved that the School Board of Spring Lake Park Schools accepts with appreciation the gifts donated to the district and that are currently on the screen. Is there any discussion? I'll just say on behalf of the board, as I always do, we are incredibly grateful to our community. We have a very generous community, and every month I'm always surprised by, not surprised, but just grateful to our community. So, anybody else have any discussion on that? Okay, clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Skelly.
Say
Yes.
Yes.
I'm like, all right.
Sorry, yes or no?
Yes or no?
I'm like, Mr.
Mr. Valella,
Yes.
Mrs. Bowe,
Yes.
Mr. Easter,
Yes.
Mrs. Forsberg, yes, Mr. Kroon,
Yes.
Mrs. Hennon.
Yes.
The resolution is duly adopted on
Thank
this.
Our
Yeah,
bad
I'm
there.
new.
Our bad
I'm
there.
new.
All right, moving on to board forum and reports. We'll start with Penny. Is Bella with us tonight? Okay, great. Welcome, Bella.
Bella, you want to go? Bella, you want to go?
Oh, Bella.
Hello. As Dr. Robert mentioned, the boys swim team did great in their state tournament and also in their conference. Gymnastics also did really well this year. Last year they were last in sections, and this year they got second. The dance team went to state for the 20th year in a row, which was also mentioned earlier. Nordic ski had an SLP student that qualified for state, which is exciting. Girls hockey was the runner-up in Section 5 AA against Maple Grove. And boys hockey won the most games that they have in the last 7 years. Girls basketball starts their section finals tonight, and the boys are playing on Wednesday against Maple Grove. So we've had a really, really good year for winter sports this year.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, as for clubs and activities, DECA, Knowledgeable, and Speech are all wrapping up their seasons in the next week or so, having had fairly good seasons. Our math team is going to state. We actually have a record number of clubs right now with really high participation, so we're all really happy about that. Panther mentors are incredibly excited about the results of the gala and getting able to use that money up and just ramp it up. Spring sports are starting out pretty much next week and the week after, with spring break being a little bit of a pause. And a little bit was talked about the middle school play. The high school musical Oklahoma is starting rehearsals right now, and we'll start doing shows fairly soon. That's all we got.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing the information. Anybody else? Anybody else have any updates on this side?
I had a Westwood PTO meeting that actually you mentioned with those goodie bags. That's what I was actually going to talk about. Caleb Lukey was talking. The Westwood PTO is doing a really cool thing right now where they have Mr. Larson give like a principal's corner every week, where he just has like some interesting thing to share. Yeah, every month I guess their meetings are. But he has something interesting to share each time, and this time he had Caleb Lukey present this really in-depth mental health PowerPoint, and it was really interesting, and it was really long and in-depth about just, I don't mean long, like, but just in-depth about just all the things that are going on, and I think it's super important to listen to and to just be reminded of. And one of the things that I thought that was the most interesting was that they can say to students, teachers can, at Westwood, and come talk to us if you need anything, and how maybe ineffective that can be. And so instead to have the students, have the teachers approach the students and say, how is everything going? And, try to ask questions that draw them out, which I thought was really helpful. And then he also talked about those little goodie bags that you showed the picture of, and how he talked about how they're grade appropriate, which I thought was really fun. So the 5th graders at Westwood are not getting the same goodie bag as the 8th graders. Mm-hmm. And so they have like little coloring books, or like, not coloring books, but activity books, I guess you'd call them, but really neat activities in there. He was showing some of the pictures and some of the things that they had in there, and just neat things in that bag that I think would definitely brighten somebody's day. So I think that was it was a good update, I think, for everybody to hear and just think about. And he said that they're talking to the teachers a lot about that right now. Mental health month?
Every month should be mental health.
Yeah. Well, they're ramping it up right now as well, so it was good. It's interesting.
Good. Thanks. Yeah. Anybody else on this side? Okay. We're good? Marilyn, you gotta have something.
Of course.
Okay.
We talked about the open house at Metro Heights at the work session, I believe, and the date of that is March 23 at 8 a.m. If any of you are interested in going, let Karen know. She will register for you for that. And then at Carner Blue that same day at 9:30. We've had recent presentations on career and tech, and so has 916. This year, we had 2 students go to Career and Tech at 916, and 37 are signed up for next year. And I understand that there is busing in cooperation with St. Anthony, and that's probably one of the things that makes a difference. We also had the first reading of a policy to establish a fund balance. 916 has never had a fund balance policy, so kind of an important thing, I think.
Yeah.
So that's what I have this evening.
Okay, thank you. I attended the Centerview PTO meeting last Monday night. Just nice to see everybody again, and they are planning their spring picnic and 4th grade end of year event, and a lot of brainstorming, which brought me back to some great PTO days. It was fun. But it's a different year. They can do a little bit more this year, so trying to brainstorm about options, and so that was fun to get to see. So, and then AMSD last Friday, they had a couple of guest speakers, a representative and a senator who, talked about some of the bills that are in the legislature. As John Strobel used to say, we'll see. a lot of talk, but we'll see how it all turns out. So it was interesting, but you never quite know how it's all going to pan out. It's still early. So we got some deadlines coming up for, I can't remember, March not too long, they have the first deadline where if a bill hasn't passed from its committee of origin, it sort of dies for the year, so we'll start seeing where things go pretty soon, so. That's all I have. Anybody else?
Lots of information available on the
Yes.
SBA website as well.
Definitely, yes. All right, I think that's it. Let's move on to adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Easter,
Second.
second by Valella. To adjourn the meeting, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We're adjourned at 7:31, but don't